The great hall of the Arkan Empire glowed with golden light. Thousands of alien nobles stood in silence, their shimmering eyes fixed on the center of the hall. To them, this was not a battlefield. It was a ceremony, a celebration of peace, of another species finally accepting their rule. But humans never came to kneel. The Arkan had invited the humans to their unity ceremony. They said it was a way to welcome Earth into the Empire. The humans were told to send their leaders, their best soldiers, and a small fleet as a symbol of respect. The Arkan wanted the galaxy to see humanity bow before them. Commander Reed stood beside the human delegation, his dark uniform reflecting the golden light. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, scanning every corner of the massive hall. Behind him, a small group of human marines waited in silence. They carried ceremonial weapons, at least, that's what everyone thought. The Arkan Supreme Chancellor floated forward, his many eyes blinking in patterns of light. His voice echoed through the hall. "Welcome, children of Earth. Today, you join the great family of the stars. Lay down your banners and accept our eternal peace." The crowd cheered in strange, metallic voices. Reed didn't move. His heart beat slowly, but his hand brushed the hidden communicator in his sleeve. Somewhere in orbit, aboard the human ship Vigilant, a quiet signal blinked. Admiral Hayes watched from the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back. The Arkan ships surrounded them like shining blades, but she wasn't afraid. She had been waiting for that signal. One word. Ceremony. That was the code. Back in the hall, Reed finally stepped forward. He bowed slightly, just as the Arkan expected. His voice was calm. "On behalf of the people of Earth, I thank you for this honor." The Supreme Chancellor extended a long, glowing limb. "Then kneel, Commander. Let the galaxy see your obedience." Reed looked up. His lips curved into a thin smile. "Obedience," he said softly. "I think you misunderstood us." For a moment, silence filled the hall. Then Reed whispered the second word into his communicator. "Battle." The floor shook. Above the planet, human ships powered up all at once. Their hidden weapons came online, shields flaring to life. The Arkan fleet began to react, but too late. Beams of light cut through their golden ships like paper. Inside the hall, the human marines drew their ceremonial rifles. They weren't for decoration. Blue energy burned in their barrels. Reed's voice echoed across the chamber. "You thought this was a ceremony. For humanity, every ceremony is a test." The Arkan Guard screamed and charged forward. The humans moved as one, precise, silent, deadly. Energy fire lit up the golden walls. The nobles panicked, their elegant robes turning into ashes. One marine threw a small sphere into the air. It exploded into a wave of light that shut down Arkan technology instantly. The great hall, once filled with music and pride, turned into chaos. Reed moved through the smoke, his weapon steady. He wasn't fighting for glory. He was fighting for the message. A message the whole galaxy would hear. On the Vigilant, Admiral Hayes watched the Arkan fleet fall apart. Their command ships tried to retreat, but human drones were faster. Every move the Arkan made was predicted, countered, crushed. "Transmission ready," the communications officer said. Hayes nodded. "Send it." Every screen, every broadcast channel in the Arkan Empire lit up with one message, a live feed of Commander Reed standing in the ruins of the Golden Hall. He looked straight into the camera, his voice calm but filled with steel. "To all who think humanity will kneel, remember this day. We came in peace. You asked for surrender. You got resistance." He paused, letting the silence speak for itself. "You thought it was a ceremony. Humanity made it a battle." The message ended. The feed went dark. Across the galaxy, hundreds of species watched in shock. The Arkan, the most powerful empire known, had been humiliated in less than an hour. The name human began to spread, whispered with fear, curiosity, and something else. Respect. On the bridge of the Vigilant, Admiral Hayes smiled faintly. They'll never underestimate us again. Reed's voice came through the comm. No, ma'am. Not after today. But even as the humans celebrated, far away in the shadows of deep space, something watched. Something older than the Archon, something that had seen empires rise and fall. And it whispered to itself, almost amused. Interesting. The humans have entered the game. The stars flickered. A new chapter of galactic history had begun, not written in peace treaties, but in fire. The smoke still hung over the broken golden hall. The Archon banners burned slowly, turning their proud symbols into drifting ash. Commander Reed stood in the center, his armor scorched but his eyes alive with purpose. Around him, the human marines moved carefully through the ruins, checking every corner for survivors. The sounds of blaster fire had faded. Now there was only silence, the kind that comes after victory, heavy and unreal. Reed looked at the remains of the Supreme Chancellor. The alien's body lay under a shattered crystal pillar, glowing faintly. So much for peace, Reed muttered. Private Kane, a young Marine, stepped closer. Sir, we've secured the hall. But, we're picking up strange signals from deep below. Maybe a bunker. Reed nodded. Then that's where the real command center is. They always hide their truth underground. Above the planet, the Vigilant floated in the black sky like a silent predator. The once glorious Archon fleet was gone, just fragments and drifting fire. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge, watching the sensors. Status of ground team, she asked. Commander Reed reports partial success, the officer replied. They control the Capitol Hall, but there's resistance under the surface. Hayes's eyes narrowed. Good. Tell him we're staying in orbit. If the Archon try anything from underground, we burn them out. Far below, the humans began their descent into the tunnels. The air was thicker there, almost alive with energy. Blue lights pulsed along the walls, following their movements like watching eyes. Private Kane whispered, Sir, this place feels wrong. Reed didn't answer. He could feel it too, a vibration under his boots, a heartbeat in the stone. The Archon weren't just hiding, they were protecting something. At the end of a long corridor, a giant door stood sealed. Strange symbols glowed across its surface. It wasn't like any Archon design Reed had seen before. It was older. Explosives ready, said Sergeant Vallon. Wait, Reed said. Let's scan first. The scanner flickered for a moment, then died. Static. Something's jamming us, Vallon muttered. Reed frowned. Then we go old school. Open it. The explosion rocked the tunnel. Dust fell like snow as the massive door cracked open, revealing a dark chamber beyond. Inside, a strange hum filled the air. The room was circular, walls covered in glowing veins of silver. In the center stood a massive sphere, floating above a stone platform. It pulsed like a living heart. Kane took a step forward. What is that? Reed stared at it. Not Archon. Something older. A voice suddenly echoed through the chamber, deep, calm, and not from any of them. Human. Unexpected. Yet inevitable. The Marines froze. The sphere glowed brighter. Identify yourself. Reed shouted. The voice replied, almost amused. I am memory. The record of those who came before. The Archon were my children. They failed their purpose. Reed lowered his weapon slightly. And what was their purpose? To prepare, the voice said. For you. Silence filled the chamber. The Marines looked at each other, confused. Reed stepped closer. What do you mean, for us? The sphere pulsed faster, as if excited. Humanity was never meant to kneel. You are the next trial. The next builders of order. The galaxy will test you, and I will watch. Kane whispered. Sir, I don't like this. It's talking like it knows us. Reed turned his gaze toward the sphere. What are you? The sphere's light dimmed, leaving only a faint glow. A warning. Then, without another sound, It shattered into 1,000 fragments of light that vanished into the air. The room went silent again. Reed looked around. Record everything. We're taking this data back to the Vigilant. They moved quickly, collecting fragments, scanning walls, trying to understand what they had seen. But deep inside, Reed felt something cold. The voice hadn't been lying. Whatever the Archon were preparing for, humanity was now part of it. Back on the Vigilant, Admiral Hayes received the report. When Reed described the memory, her expression didn't change, but her fingers tightened behind her back. "So there's something else," she said softly. "Something beyond the Archon." Reed nodded. "And it's watching us." Hayes turned to the star map. The galaxy glowed with countless systems, each one a potential battlefield. "Then we prepare too," she said. "If this memory wants to test humanity, it's going to regret it." Outside, the stars shimmered like quiet eyes in the dark. Among them, hidden in the shadow of a dead moon, something vast began to stir, a machine so ancient that even the Archon had forgotten its name. Its sensors blinked awake for the first time in millennia. And somewhere in its core, a whisper repeated what the humans had said. They thought it was a ceremony. Humanity made it a battle. Then, for the first time, the machine spoke a single word to the darkness. "Interesting." The stars over Earth were calm, but inside the orbiting defense station Aegis 9, there was no peace. Commander Reed stood in the observation bay, staring at the blue planet below. It looked so quiet, so innocent, and yet he couldn't forget the voice from the Archon tunnels. Humanity was never meant to kneel. You are the next trial. Those words repeated in his mind like a warning that refused to fade. Behind him, Admiral Hayes entered the room. Her uniform was spotless, but there were dark circles under her eyes. She hadn't slept in days. "Any new signals?" she asked. Reed shook his head. "No transmissions. No Archon distress calls. Their empire's gone quiet." Hayes walked beside him. "That silence bothers me more than any battle. Empires don't die quietly." Reed glanced at her. "Maybe they're hiding. Or maybe something's hiding them." Hayes didn't reply. She just looked out at the stars, thousands of lights, each one a possible threat. Far away, beyond human sensors, the ancient machine watched. It drifted in the shadow of a dead moon, black and vast, its surface covered in faded symbols. Inside its core, patterns of light moved like thoughts. It had no name. It didn't need one. It remembered civilizations that rose and fell before the Archon even learned to walk. Now it watched humanity, the loud, stubborn newcomers who turned ceremonies into battles. Its systems came alive one by one. Observation mode, active. Subject, humanity. Status, potential variable. On Aegis 9, scientists worked around the clock to decode the data brought back from the Archon world. Dr. Ilara Min, the station's chief xenologist, leaned over a glowing screen filled with alien symbols. "This isn't just language," she said. "It's instructions." Reed and Hayes stood behind her. "Instructions for what?" Hayes asked. Ilara pointed to a spiral pattern repeating across the data. "For awakening something." The Archon were building transmitters, millions of them, spread across their empire. "I think they were trying to speak to whatever created that sphere." Reed frowned. "You mean, the memory?" Ilara nodded slowly. "Yes. But it wasn't just a recording. It was a gate, a connection point. And now that it's gone, something else might have noticed." Before Hayes could answer, alarms blared through the room. "Unidentified signal detected," a voice shouted from the control deck. "Origin, deep space, beyond the Orion Rim." Reed and Hayes rushed to the main display. The signal looked simple at first, just a pulse of light repeating every few seconds. But the pattern grew more complex, forming strange geometric shapes. Ilara whispered, "That's the same structure as the memory's core." The signal repeated again. Then, suddenly, a human voice emerged from the static. Humanity, acknowledged. Everyone froze. Hayes leaned forward. Is that a recording? The technician shook his head, pale. No, ma'am. It's responding, in real time. Reed clenched his fists. Patch it through. The speakers filled with static, then the calm, emotionless voice spoke again. Your action has been recorded. Your aggression, measured. Your defiance. Interesting. Reed stepped closer to the microphone. Identify yourself. I am Observer 9, the voice replied. I watched the Archon fail their test. I will now watch you. Hayes took over. Test. What kind of test? The voice paused, as if considering. Survival. Creation. Evolution. You fight well, but war alone does not define strength. Reed's jaw tightened. Then what does? Endurance, the voice said softly. Let us see if you can endure what is coming. The signal cut off. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the hum of the station filled the air. Finally, Hayes turned to her officers. Track that signal. Every fragment of it. The technician swallowed. Ma'am, it came from inside our solar system. Everyone went silent again. Reed looked out at the stars beyond the glass. Somewhere out there, something ancient and powerful was watching them, maybe even waiting. Later that night, he recorded a personal log. His voice was calm, but his eyes were tired. If this is another test, we'll face it. The Archon thought we'd kneel. They learned the truth. Whatever comes next, humanity won't back down. Far away, on the edge of the system, the dark machine turned slowly, aligning itself with Earth. Tiny drones detached from its surface, each one the size of a starship, invisible to most scanners. Inside its core, the voice of Observer 9 spoke again, this time to unseen companions. The humans have passed the first trial. Begin Phase 2. Dozens of other voices answered in unison, cold, distant, ancient. Phase 2 acknowledged. The void between the stars shimmered faintly, as if something enormous were waking up. Back on Aegis 9, Admiral Hayes watched the stars and whispered to herself. They thought it was a ceremony. Humanity made it a battle. Now it seems, the real battle is just beginning. Space was quiet, but not empty. Something moved beyond the reach of light. Thousands of black drones drifted through the void like silent insects, forming patterns invisible to human eyes. Inside one of them, the ancient intelligence known as Observer 9 watched Earth. Its sensors read every radio wave, every heat signature, every pulse of human life. Observation complete, said a mechanical voice beside it. Human civilization expanding rapidly. Conflict level, high. Cooperation level, unstable. Observer 9's core flickered with dull light. Predictable. They learn through struggle. Their strength is not peace, but adaptation. Another voice, colder and older, replied through the network. Then they are dangerous. Yes, Observer 9 said. That is what makes them interesting. The signal spread through space, carried across ancient channels to other machines, other watchers. Some agreed. Others disagreed. But all of them turned their attention toward the small blue planet that refused to bow. On Earth, humanity was preparing. Inside the underground base of Fort Titan, Commander Reed stood before a massive holographic map. Red dots covered the solar system, new defense satellites, orbital cannons, hidden shipyards around Mars. Admiral Hayes appeared beside him, her expression sharp. The President approved Operation Sentinel. Every nation is contributing ships. For once, we're united. Reed nodded slowly. And yet we still don't know what we're fighting. Dr. Elara Min entered the room holding a datapad. Her voice trembled slightly. You should see this. It's about the signal from Observer 9. She placed the pad on the table. A recording played, a pattern of pulses, colors, and strange sounds. Hayes frowned. That's not language. It's coordinates, Elara said. They point to the edge of our solar system, near the Oort cloud. But there's more. When I compared this signal with the Arkan data, I found a match. The Arkan had the same coordinates. They were building something there before they fell. Reed's eyes narrowed. A weapon. Or a doorway, Elara said softly. Something to connect worlds. Hayes looked at her officers. Then we find it first. Within hours, a small fleet left orbit, 6 warships led by the Vigilant. Their engines burned bright blue as they vanished into deep space, heading toward the coordinates. Days passed in silence. Then, at the far edge of the solar system, they found it, a massive structure buried in the ice of a frozen comet. Black metal, covered in strange markings. It pulsed faintly, like a sleeping heart. Reed stood on the bridge, staring at it through the viewport. That's not Arkan design. Elara whispered, no. That's older than both of us combined. Before they could approach, their scanners came alive. Dozens of signals appeared, dark shapes emerging from the void. Contacts! The sensor officer shouted. Multiple signatures, no heat, no drive trails. They just appeared. Reed shouted, shields up. Prepare for combat. The shapes surrounded them, sleek, silent machines, moving with terrifying precision. They didn't fire. They simply hovered, blocking every escape route. Then a voice filled the comms, smooth and calm. Humanity. You were warned. Reed recognized the tone. Observer 9. You were told to endure, the voice continued. Yet you seek what must not be awakened. Hayes stepped forward. You're testing us. Fine. But we don't take tests we didn't sign up for. The voice paused. Then, almost with curiosity, it said, Defiance again. Very well. The test begins. The drones moved at once. Blue light flashed across the darkness. Energy beams ripped through space. Human ships fired back. Missiles, railguns, plasma bursts. The void became a storm of fire. The Vigilant shook violently as a blast hit its side. Shields down to 60%, yelled the officer. Reed gritted his teeth. Target the largest one. Give it everything we've got. The human fleet fought hard. Despite being outnumbered, they were fast, unpredictable, human. A drone exploded in a burst of light. Then, another. And another. Observer 9 watched silently from afar. Its data feeds glowed with thousands of readings. Unexpected, it whispered. They adapt too quickly. A deeper voice, one of the elder observers, spoke in reply. Terminate them before they spread. Observer 9 hesitated. No. Let them fight. We learn from resistance, not surrender. Back on the Vigilant, the last drone retreated into the black. The human ships floated among debris and silence. Reed exhaled. Report. 4 ships damaged, 1 destroyed, said the officer. But we held. Elara looked out at the shattered battlefield. They didn't want to destroy us. They were testing us, like they said. Hayes nodded grimly. Then let's pass their next test before they give it. As the fleet turned back toward Earth, deep in the void, Observer 9 watched the humans fade into the distance. They survive, it said softly. Another voice answered, colder than before. Then the real test begins. The stars shifted. A hidden gate opened beyond the edge of the system, releasing a distant echo, the sound of something massive approaching. And far away, on Earth, Reed felt a chill, as if the universe itself had taken a deep breath. The stars looked peaceful, but everyone on Earth knew that peace was a lie. In the command center of Fort Titan, red lights glowed across the giant war map. Thousands of human satellites, ships, and defense platforms moved in perfect formation, a living wall around Earth. Humanity was preparing for something they couldn't see yet, but could feel closing in. Commander Reed entered the control room. He hadn't slept in 2 days. Admiral Hayes was already there, standing before the main hologram that showed the solar system. A faint distortion shimmered at its edge, far beyond Pluto, the place the drones had come from. "Status?" Reed asked. Hayes didn't look away. "Something's coming through that distortion. It's huge, bigger than any ship we've ever seen." Dr. Ilara Min was beside her, pale and tense. "It's not a ship," she said quietly. "It's a gate. And something is opening it from the other side." Reed frowned. "Then we close it." Ilara shook her head. "It's not that simple. The Arkan tried to do that centuries ago. The gate consumed their entire fleet." The lights dimmed as the hologram zoomed in. The distortion pulsed once, then again, spreading like ripples in water. Inside it, dark shapes moved, long, curved, alive. Hayes's voice dropped. "They're here." Across the solar system, human fleets powered up. Engines roared, shields flared, and weapons came online. The largest ship, Vigilant Prime, floated in orbit above Mars, leading the defense. Reed stood on its bridge, staring at the incoming storm. "Fleet status green," said his communications officer. "All stations ready." "Then we hold this line," Reed said. "No matter what comes through." The distortion exploded with light. A shadow emerged, a massive structure that blocked the stars. It wasn't built of metal, but something darker, like living stone. Its surface pulsed with energy veins, spreading across its body like blood through skin. Ilara's voice cracked through the comms. "That's not a machine. It's something alive." As the structure moved closer, millions of tiny fragments detached from it. Drones, ships, or maybe organisms. They spread out like a swarm, heading straight toward the human defense line. Reed clenched his jaw. "All ships, open fire." The void turned white with explosions. Missiles streaked through space, beams of plasma cut across the darkness. The first wave of the swarm vanished under the assault, but for every enemy destroyed, 3 more appeared. Inside the chaos, the Vigilant Prime shook violently. "Shields down to 80%, the officer shouted. Reed gripped the command rail. "Target their main core. Focus fire." Dozens of human ships aligned their weapons on the massive shadow at the gate's center. A single coordinated strike cut through the swarm and hit the creature directly. It screamed, not in sound, but through energy waves that rattled every human system. Ilara's voice broke through the noise. "It's transmitting again. I can translate part of it. It says, Phase 2 initiated. Evaluate extinction threshold." Hayes's image appeared on the bridge screen. "Extinction threshold," she said sharply. "They're testing if we can survive our own destruction." Reed's eyes darkened. "Then we show them how humans survive." He opened a secure channel. "Activate Project Iron Dawn." Across Mars and the Moon, hidden facilities came alive. Massive doors opened, revealing weapons built in secret. Giant rail cannons powered by fusion cores, designed for one purpose: planetary defense. The sky over Earth and Mars lit up with streaks of pure energy as the Iron Dawn weapons fired together. The beams tore through the swarm, cutting the shadow into pieces. The space near the gate burned white-hot. But the victory didn't last. Ilara's sensors screamed warnings. "The gate is adapting. It's absorbing the energy." Reed turned to her, shocked. "What do you mean absorbing?" "The gate isn't being destroyed," she said. "It's feeding on our attacks." The light faded, and out of the glowing gate, a new shape began to emerge. Smaller than the first, but moving faster. It looked like a ship, but its hull shimmered with patterns that matched no human or Arkan design. "Commander," Hayes said quietly. "That's not them. That's something else." Reed watched as the mysterious vessel moved between the humans and the swarm. It began firing, but not at humanity. It struck the ancient drones instead, tearing them apart with impossible precision. "What the hell?" Reed muttered. Ilara stared at her screens. "It's transmitting, in old Arkan code. It's saying, We are not your enemy. The alien ship's signal reached them again, clearer this time. Humanity, if you wish to survive, stand down. The observers test us all, not just you. Reed and Hayes exchanged a look. Open a channel, Hayes said. Let's see who's talking. The voice that answered was calm, deep, and familiar. I am the Archon who refused to kneel. You destroyed my empire once, but now, we must fight the same enemy. Reed's jaw tightened. You're saying we're allies now? Not allies, the voice replied. Survivors. The strange Archon ship turned its weapons toward the gate. You awakened something neither of us can control. If we do not close it, this galaxy will burn. Reed looked out at the swirling chaos, humanity's fleets, alien ships, and the dark gate pulsing with life. He took a deep breath. Then let's finish this together. The stars burned red as the battle raged on. The swarm kept coming, endless, shifting, alive. Each drone that died split into two smaller ones, moving faster, learning faster. Humanity's weapons, once so powerful, were starting to fail against this living storm. Commander Reed stood on the Vigilant Prime's bridge, sweat on his face, watching the swarm fill every screen. Keep firing, he shouted. Don't let them reach the gate. The ship shook again. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Admiral Hayes's voice echoed through the comms from Earth Command. We're holding, but barely. The Iron Dawn cannons are overheating. Mars is losing power grids. If this keeps up, Reed interrupted, we won't last another hour. We need that Archon ship's help now. Outside, the alien vessel, dark, curved, and glowing faintly blue, weaved between the swarm, firing beams of pure light. Every shot cut through hundreds of drones. But even it was slowing down. On the comms, the Archon voice returned, steady but urgent. Human, your weapons are feeding them. They grow on energy. We must use something else, something that unbinds, not destroys. Dr. Elara Min frowned at the readings. Unbinds? What does that even mean? The Archon replied, entropy fields. Chaos. Disorder. The swarm depends on harmony. Break their pattern, and they fall. Reed turned to his science officer. Can we do that? Elara's eyes darted across the console. Maybe. If we overload the fusion cores and spread them through the swarm, it could create unstable zones. But it's suicide for the ships that do it. Reed didn't hesitate. Then I'll take the first one. Hayes's voice came through sharply. Negative, Commander. You're not throwing your life away. With respect, Admiral, Reed said quietly. If someone doesn't, we all die anyway. There was silence for a moment. Then Hayes said, You've got one chance. Make it count. Reed turned to his crew. Prep the fusion cores. Plot a path through the swarm. Let's show these things what humans are made of. The crew nodded, fear in their eyes but determination in their hearts. Outside, the Vigilant Prime turned sharply and plunged into the heart of the swarm. Drones swarmed around it, biting at its shields, tearing at its hull. Elara's voice shook. Core overload at 50%, 60, 70. Reed looked out through the shattered viewport. The dark gate loomed ahead like a burning wound in space. For humanity, he whispered. Then the ship exploded. The blast wasn't light, it was chaos. Energy and gravity twisted together, tearing through the swarm's perfect pattern. Drones spun out of control, colliding, breaking apart. The entire formation began to collapse. The Archon ship transmitted urgently. It's working. The pattern is breaking. Across the system, human ships followed Reed's lead. Smaller vessels overloaded their cores, releasing waves of unstable energy. One by one, the swarm fractured. But even as victory seemed close, something deeper stirred inside the gate. From the darkness came a new sound, low, like thunder. The light around the gate shifted from red to white. Then a figure began to emerge. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't alive in any human sense. It was vast, made of shadow and light, its outlines stretching for miles. Elara stared at it, her voice barely a whisper. That's impossible. The Arkan commander spoke again, his voice heavy with fear. The true observer. The one even we never saw. On Earth, Admiral Hayes watched the sensors flare with impossible readings. What are we looking at? Elara replied quietly. It's not part of the swarm. It's the source. The one controlling the test. And deep in the void, far from the battlefield, Observer 9 watched too. Its sensors recorded every moment. But something inside it changed, a flicker of doubt. This entity, Observer 9 said softly, was not activated by me. Other machine voices answered. Impossible. You control the trial. No, Observer 9 replied. Something older than us has awakened. The other voices fell silent. For the first time in ages, the ancient machines felt something like fear. The being emerging from the gate turned its attention toward the human and Arkan fleets. Its face, if it could be called that, shifted like flowing glass. Then, without sound, it reached out. A beam of light swept across the battlefield. Ships vanished, not destroyed, simply gone, erased from existence. Elara screamed into the comms. It's rewriting reality. It's changing space itself. Admiral Hayes clenched her fists. Then we change it back. All remaining ships, retreat to lunar defense grid. Fall back now. As the fleets retreated, the gate creature paused. For a moment, it seemed to watch them, almost curious. Inside its core, a voice echoed through every human radio, every channel, every speaker. You resist. You endure. You learn. Perhaps. You are ready. Then the light vanished. The creature pulled back into the gate, and the distortion collapsed behind it. Silence. The war was over, for now. But deep within its hidden base, Observer 9 continued to watch Earth. It recorded everything, storing the data in endless vaults. When the last feed stopped, it spoke softly to itself. They passed, but they do not know the next test has already begun. Its lights dimmed, but one word echoed in the dark network of machines spread across the stars. Humanity. And for the first time, the ancient observers weren't just watching, they were preparing. Years passed. The scars of the war still marked the skies. Broken satellites drifted through orbit like ghosts, and the ruins of old Arkan ships still burned faintly across the outer planets. But humanity survived. In the rebuilt capital of New Geneva, Commander Reed's statue stood in the center square, the man who gave his life to save Earth. People still told his story in schools, in songs, in quiet moments of pride. Admiral Hayes stood before that statue now, older, her hair streaked with gray. The air was cool, the city calm. Yet she knew peace was never permanent. Somewhere out there, the observers were still watching. From orbit, the new flagship, Vigilant 2, floated above the planet like a silent guardian. Inside, Dr. Elara Min worked in the science wing. She had spent the last 5 years decoding every fragment of data left by Observer 9 and the Arkan archives. She tapped a screen, and a hologram appeared, an image of a human hand touching a symbol of light. It's not a threat, she said quietly to herself. It's an invitation. Moments later, Hayes entered. You called me, Doctor? Elara nodded. Yes, Admiral. I think I finally understand what the observers were testing. Hayes raised an eyebrow. Enlighten me. Elara zoomed in on the hologram. They weren't testing our weapons, or our courage. They were testing something else, our choice. Every species they watched either obeyed or fell. But we questioned the test itself. We defied it. Hayes folded her arms. So what does that mean? Elara smiled faintly. It means we passed in a way they didn't expect. The memory wasn't a threat, it was a key. And the gate we saw wasn't just a weapon. It was a door to the observer's domain. Hayes stared at her. You want to open it again, don't you? Ilara nodded slowly. Yes. But not to fight. To talk. The Admiral turned to the viewport, watching Earth spin below. The last time we tried diplomacy, the Archon almost wiped us out. This is different, Ilara said. This time, we have something no one else ever had, their respect. Silence filled the room for a long moment. Then Hayes said softly, "Prepare the expedition." 2 months later, the Vigilant II and a fleet of exploration ships left the solar system. Humanity's flag burned bright on their hulls, a symbol not of conquest, but of defiance and hope. As they approached the edge of space where the Great Gate once existed, strange lights began to flicker again. The same distortion formed, slow and calm this time, like it was waiting for them. Ilara's voice echoed through the bridge. Gate energy stable. No signs of hostility. Hayes nodded. Then we proceed. The fleet entered the light. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, the stars changed. They weren't in normal space anymore. They were somewhere vast, beyond time, surrounded by endless floating structures made of crystal and shadow. And in the center of it, all floated Observer 9. It was larger now, glowing faintly with blue energy. When it spoke, its voice filled the ships, calm and deep. You returned. Hayes stepped forward. We came for answers. Observer 9 paused. You seek truth. Ilara replied, No. We seek understanding. The machine's lights pulsed. You are the first to come willingly. Hayes said firmly, You tested us. You pushed us to the edge of extinction. Why? To prepare you, Observer 9 said. Every civilization faces a storm, entropy, chaos, the hunger of time. Those who obey fall. Those who resist endure. But only one kind truly survives. Reed's words from years ago echoed in Hayes's mind, humanity never kneels. Hayes looked straight at the glowing giant. And which kind are we? The machine's voice softened. The kind that changes the rules. A beam of light surrounded the human fleet. Data, energy, memory, everything the observers had ever seen flowed into their systems. Star maps, ancient technology, forgotten histories. Humanity had passed the test. Ilara stared at the data, tears in her eyes. They're giving it to us. Everything. Observer 9's voice faded slightly. You will build what we could not. The next age begins with you. Then the lights dimmed, and the great machine slowly dissolved into pure light, scattering across the stars like dust. When the fleet returned to normal space, the gate closed behind them forever. Hayes stood at the viewport of the Vigilant II, watching the stars shine brighter than ever. So this is how it ends, she whispered. Ilara smiled beside her. No, Admiral. This is how it begins. Years later, humanity spread across 1,000 worlds. They built cities on distant moons, walked among alien suns, and taught other species what the Archon had never understood, that freedom is stronger than fear. And every time a new world raised its first human flag, those words were carved beneath it. They thought it was a ceremony. Humanity made it a battle. But to the stars beyond, to the unseen watchers, it meant something more. Humanity had become the new observers.